Hi everyone, so we're going to look at another Arcane deep dive. This time with just an excellent quote from Arcane. Arcane just has some wonderful writing. In fact, when I was just looking at some of the writing in Arcane and some of the wonderful quotes in this series, there are a couple that actually stood out. One of my favorites is the one that's actually mentioned by Silco, and he says, "What's truth but a survivor's story?" When you think about history, that seems to be pretty much true. The winners are the people who make the truth. It's hard to figure out what the truth because the people who are dead are not allowed to talk. But then there's another wonderful quote. Echo mentions, "It's not enough to give them what they need to survive. You need to give them enough to live." And he's talking to Heimerdinger in this instance. And this quote really encapsulates what is very necessary to actually be a leader. This is something that Silco seems to be aware of because he has this vision of Zon, and so he has something to really put the people in the Undercity together to get people on his side, even if they don't agree with him. And Vander did not quite get that, which is the reason why Vander ended up losing some people to Silco's side, and most likely, even if Silco didn't have a plan to basically murder him and wasn't successful, even though that entire situation was extremely tragic, most likely in the long term, just because Vander didn't understand this particular lesson, he would have probably have kind of fallen to Silco. But I mean, given that quote, there's another quote that Echo says that is just really encapsulates both Jinx and Vi so well, and the situation that goes on in Arcane. In fact, I don't think there is a better quote than this particular one. So the quote actually is this right here. Boom. Which is, here, this is the situation. So Vi and Echo are up in the tree, and Echo is just basically feeling Vi in about what has happened. Vi had been basically locked up in Stillwater Prison, and doesn't know exactly what's going on. And so, Silco just basically expanded his power. Lots of people died, so on and so forth. And Vi is like, "I should have been there for you, for everyone." So Vi has kind of feeling of regret and responsibility of all the bad things that have happened while she was away. But Echo responds, "Oh, that's a good way to drive yourself crazy." And when you think about this is really true. And Vi just seems to kind of beat herself up over the fact that she wasn't there. And it doesn't show up just like in this scene. It actually shows up in a couple of other scenes. There's a situation where Vi is talking to Caitlyn, and Vi is talking about how when she and Powder were younger, they would play a game about monsters. And at the end of that conversation, she mentions that then a real monster showed up and she ran away. Now, the actual sequence of events is different. What ended up happening is Vi got like really emotionally upset because of all the things that happened at the end of episode 3 is like just really traumatic. And she struck Powder, kind of more of just a reaction. She regretted that, and then she took herself out of the situation. So because she was like so full of emotion, and she didn't feel like she could control herself. That maybe she would do something more that she regretted because what she said and what she did, those were bad things. But you can understand it in given the situation. So she pulled herself away. Now that, from maybe looking at afterwards, that's like running away. But I mean, that wasn't running away. Anyway, it was just trying to be a good way to collect herself. But what ended up happening is, of course, she got chloroformed by Marcus and then thrown in prison. So she was never able to go back. And so probably in her mind, she changed that scene from her running away. And sometimes we are the stories that we tell ourselves. And this is a bad story to tell yourself that you ran away when you really didn't. And it's like, I should have been there. I should have been there for Powder. I should have been there for you, because I could have stopped all these things with my fists. And you see this throughout the series, and even towards the end of season one, there's no clear indication that Vi has gotten any sort of peace with respect to this. It still seems that she regrets what's happened in the past. She regrets that she was not there. And she probably regrets the fact that Outer became Jinx. And Jinx, basically went very mentally stable, went insane. And it was all because Vi wasn't there to protect her from Silco's influence. That's probably the story that Vi is telling herself. And so, in season two, whether explored or not, this is kind of a serious issue of Vi, and a way that you could just like shift yourself to being incredibly depressed just by beating yourself over and over and over and over about all the things you could have done, that you should have done. But given the circumstances, those were not possible. And even today, there are lots of things that we do, choices that we make, sometimes, with the best intentions, and things don't quite work out. And it really isn't a good thing to just beat ourselves over the past mistakes that we've made. And that's why Echo is just pretty much saying, that's a good way to drive yourself crazy. I mean, that is a good way to drive yourself, maybe not literally crazy, but definitely towards depression. Now, let's look at this and another aspect here, which is the aspect with respect to Jinx. So, think about this. In episode 3, Powder is, had panic attack, and she's like situation here because, she was told that she was not ready. And of course, because her father is in danger and because her friends are in danger, she feels like, she should be there. She should be able to help them. And so she comes up with this idea of using the crystals as an explosive device to help save everyone. When that end up happening is she ends up killing everyone, and that kind of fact is very hard to face in any, just considering how young she is. I mean, that would be an extremely traumatic event. She's already witnessed another traumatic event much earlier in the series when her parents were murdered. So if you can consider trauma upon trauma, it's like that is just not a good situation. And she probably wasn't like extremely mentally stable to begin with when you consider how her age and the trauma that she had to endure. So all of that was just like bad news. And so because she felt that she had to be there for everyone, for her sister, for her father, that she ended up going on and setting a series of events in motion so that she ended up practically going crazy. So you can kind of see here that Echo basically does a good job of encapsulating the direction that Vi is going to go. Well, not literally being insane here, but by beating yourself up, you're going to go on the road to a dark place. Depression, definitely. And you're going to drive yourself crazy. You're just going to beat yourself up. You're not going to be in a good mental situation. And the fact that Echo knows this very well, because most likely Echo saw that this very path is the path that Powder took that drove her insane and to become Jinx in that way. So, looking at this, I just think that the writers were doing a wonderful job in putting a simple line that very well encapsulated the path that Jinx took and the path that Vi is taking, and putting it into this one scene. It's just a simple line said by two characters in a very short scene, but done just incredibly well. And of course, since there's so many other good scenes, I'm definitely going to cover them as well in another video, and I hope to see you then. Bye bye.